the absolute basics. So for today, our big bullet point that we're going to talk about is going to be our two types of laws. We have our criminal law and we have our civil or our tort laws. Again, like I said, we're going to get more into these later. I just want to give you guys some real basic stuff. Yes, sir.
Why is civil law called tort law?
Long story short, it's from our British traditions, and they call it tort law. We just kind of tweak it a bit. Now, first, I want to explain a few things about criminal law or our statutes. Now, I have to kind of re-emphasize which branch of government makes the law, who writes it out, who creates it. So, yes, legislative writes it, and then who signs it? Executive signs it. So we need those two branches to come together to make a law. But once they do, that law is on the books, and it's enforceable. And what it's saying is that this is a law established by the state with the idea that it's created to protect society. If you violate that law, then the state will bear down upon you and they will punish you to correct that misbehavior. Now, I bring this up because I broke a law. Sorry, I shouldn't have rolled through that stop sign when I was 17 years old. My fault. I broke the law that endangered society, no matter how ridiculous it might have been. I did it, so the state had to come and get me in order to punish me, to teach me to never roll through a stop sign again, and I never have. I'm currently lying to you right now, I'm sorry, okay? But this is how they enforce the law. Now, as I was telling you guys, when you're sitting there in front of the judge and you're in court, you can feel the power of the state. They got you. They, within parameters, can treat you how they see fit. If you're wearing a hat in court, or if your phone goes off, they can send you to prison. Okay? That's the power they have. Now, the founders knew this. They understand. They know. They lived under a state that was way more powerful than what they create. And they said, when you're up against the power of the state, you need all the protections you can get. You need all the help you can have. So in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, they write down all these protections that you get from the power of the state. Now, I bet off the top of your head, you guys can think of a handful. If you're in court and you're facing off against the state, what's one thing that you get? What are you guaranteed to have? What do you think? Guess that?
The right to an attorney.
You get an attorney. You can either get one yourself, or if you can't afford one, that one will be provided for you. Good. What else do you get? Something else?
Free and fair trial by the jury.
Excellent. You get a trial by jury. You get a speedy and public trial. It's guaranteed. Something else? Yep. You get all these protections against the state. The founders wanted it this way. So they set up our criminal justice system in such a way where they said, you're going to have all sorts of guarantees. Now, we're going to get more into those later, but before we do, I want to talk about how we classify our crimes, our transgressions. Now, we were talking the other day, homicide is its own entity. That has several different levels, and it's really separate from this. As you go down from homicide, you get to our felonies. Now, felonies are the more serious crimes, and there really is a dividing line. If you're convicted of committing a felony, you can basically assume that you're going to serve more than a year in prison. That's the divider. Because as you go down a level, you get to misdemeanors. Now, misdemeanors are less serious crimes. There are a bunch of different examples we're going to talk about. But again, the dividing line. Misdemeanors, if you go to prison, you can basically be guaranteed you're going to serve less than a year in prison. Now, that's for really bad misdemeanors. Most of them, you're not going to prison for a misdemeanor. There are some other kinds of punishment that the state can dish out to correct the behavior. One of which is going to be fines. Now, in my little example, when I rolled through the stop sign, I got fined, I don't remember now, I think it was something like $100. Pay $100, The state takes your money as a punishment and says, never do it again. I said, I promise I never will. I don't even think I said that. Fines, you can dish them out. They can be pretty small, speeding tickets, whatever. They can get pretty huge, though. I think off the top of my head, the biggest fine that I can remember that someone got was about $50 million. I don't even remember what it was anymore, but they can dish out fines that can be enormous. Now, if I got a $50 million fine for rolling through the stop sign, does that sound, does the punishment fit the crime for that?
No.
Unless I've done it a lot. But fines have to be associated with the crime that's committed. Now, another thing that they can do is going to be community service. Now, again, for community service, what it is the court will sentence you to X number of hours of community service. Depending, again, on the crime, they can say it's 5 hours, 10, 100, 500, whatever the court decides. Now, I bet you might have seen this before. Have you seen, like, the people who are, like, wearing the vests on the highway and are picking up trash? That's one way to do community service. A lot of different options, but the court says, we are going to make you serve your community in order to correct your behavior. Now, next one, I use this one and the one after this somewhat in junction together because they can be very similar. Supervision and probation are fairly similar in that these are court orders that say, we're not sending you to prison, but you do have to abide by certain behavioral stipulations that we demand. What a lot of times the court will say is, you have to do this and this and this and this, and if you do that, then you can stay out of prison. So some things they might say is, you have to stay within the state, you can't leave the state because then it gets very messy. You can't use alcohol or drugs, you have to check in with a probation officer. If you do all that, then you're not going to jail. I have a close personal friend of mine who found himself on probation for maybe one of the weirdest moments of my life. I have a friend named Taco. It's all too real. I met Taco when I was in college because I played rugby with Taco. Taco's about 5'10", and he's dropped some weight recently. Taco's about 300 pounds. He's a large individual with a great deal of rage and also really friendly. One time when we were in college, Taco and I were walking down the street, and for whatever reason, he literally just punched through the window of this business. Don't know why. Now, I thought that was weird. It gets weirder. Like, immediately, he pulls his hand back, and he's covered in blood, and right behind me, I hear, stop right there. Turn around. There were 2 police officers, like seriously, like probably 20 yards away from us. Like, oh no. Like, thank goodness I didn't do it. Taco runs. I was like, Taco, you're not getting away from anyone. Like, I don't know why. Turns down this alley. The alley's blocked. Here are the 2 police officers, like, I'm watching this happen. Grab him, handcuff him, throw him in the car, and I'm just left on the street. I'm going, this day got really weird really fast. Taco gets arrested, taken to jail. He has his trial, and the judge says, look, you don't have like any history of this. I'm not sending you to jail, but I'm putting you on probation for 3 months. Now, Taco got 3 months of probation. I remember this. He had to get a lawyer for all this, which is real expensive. And his lawyer told me, he said, look, I can't tell you how to live your life, but I will tell you this. If I were you, I wouldn't leave the house for 3 months. Because if you have anything that might be considered a crime against you in those 3 months, you are going to jail. If you get in a car accident, even if it's not your fault, you're going to jail. For those 3 months.
Really?
Yep.
How does that work? Like, even if you're the victim of a car accident?
Yep. Because maybe part of it was your fault. If you got anything, he said, you're going to jail. For 3 months, Taco went to 2 places. He went to class, he went to practice, and he went home immediately for 3 months.
Playing any games?
No, actually he did. Okay, practicing games, did that. Now, that was his probation. Now, sometimes it's longer than that. Sometimes people violate their probation and they go to jail. Again, can't tell you how to live your life. You make your choices. Now, I put this one on here as other because the court has a lot of latitude to have some other kind of punishments as well. I always use this one because I think this, for whatever reason, this one worked. There was a judge, I think it was in Missouri, if I remember right, where there was a guy who was passing like bad checks, like forged checks. And he did it over and over and over again. And this judge said, this guy's been here at least a dozen times. We find him, we put him in jail, nothing seems to work. He keeps doing this. So the last time, this judge sentenced this guy to hold a sign on a street corner for like 6 hours that said, I'm a thief. Hold the sign. Judge said that was the last time I saw that guy. He never committed that crime again. For whatever reason, that punishment worked. So they have some latitude into what other kind of punishments they want to dish out. Yes, sir.
What would be considered cruel?
Hang on, sorry. Yes, sir.
So the home runs fit into like the other.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's actually kind of probation and supervision as well. But yeah, you're right. Yes, sir.
Wouldn't that holding a sign thing be considered cruel and unusual?
Some people have said that. But they go, nope, can't do that. It's cruel and unusual. Court usually comes back and says, no, it's not. You're holding a sign. But it could be.
But
Sure.
it's unusual punishment, so
It's different. It's not pulling your fingernails out. It depends. You're absolutely right, though. It could be. Now, I want to talk about how the system is set up in such a way where you do get a great deal of protection against the states. Now, if you're charged with a criminal violation, you're going to court, and the government is the prosecutor. Now, I can tell you this because I have a couple of friends actually who have been district attorneys, who have been prosecutors. They get promoted, they get raises based on how many convictions they get. If you're not getting convictions, you're not a very good prosecutor. I'm just telling you the way it works. That's how it happens. Government employees get paid on prosecutions. So we need a system in place that's designed to help the defendant, the person accused of this crime. If you're going to be convicted of a criminal, in a criminal case, it's set up this way. The founders made it this way. That if you're going to be convicted, it's got to be proven beyond a reasonable doubt that you committed the crime. Has to be beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, what I always do at this point is I ask you, in your mind, what percentage of certainty do you have to say, this person is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? Now, here's what I want you to do, just real fast. Just somewhere in your notes, you can put it just like in the margin, whatever. I want you to write down, what percentage in your mind do you think you need to convict someone beyond a reasonable doubt? I usually get numbers that are all over the place. So let me ask you guys. What number did you put down? What percentage of certainty do you have to say, beyond a reasonable doubt, I think this person's guilty? What do you think? What is it?
75.
75? Okay. And Maya, you're shaking your head 75, that's what you put too? Okay, all right. Is that what you
I
put?
said 100 because the other 25% there's still reasonable out there.
Maybe.
So I'm like, there has to be like actual proof saying like the witness was here at the scene or like an eyewitness testimony to.
Have to be absolutely certain 100%. Where you might say like, well, I can be pretty certain at 75. Anybody lower than 75? Oh, what you have?
Well, no, I didn't lower. I'm not lower than 75. I said 80.
80, okay.
I was just thinking like it's really accumulated based on beyond reasonable doubt for sure. But I said 80 because I don't think there's anything that can really convince me like that 20%. Like, oh, it's actually the other way.
Sure. Where it's completely up to you what your definition of a reasonable doubt is. Yes, sir.
So when the prosecutors get paid on convictions, does that mean like if you plead guilty, is that considered conviction for them?
It can be, yeah.
Okay. Like I was wondering because it's like that seems unfair to like the common person. It's like the system is rigged. It's like in order for them to get paid and for them to live, the little man has to suffer.
Well, let me just kind of tell you this. if they're gonna actually go to trial,